College professors of Reddit, what's your "I'm surprised you made it out of high school" story? There have been disturbingly high numbers of students on a performance-based music degree who can't read music. Not musicologists or conceptual composers who could in theory get away with it. No. These were people turning up expecting to study Western classical performance. There was even a master's student once. I once got an exam essay that mentioned how much Mandela hated the Jews. After scratching my head for a bit and wondering if I'd missed some obvious signs of his anti-Semitism, I realized she meant Mengele. As in Joseph Mengele, the Nazi angel of death. Hard to think of a worse person she could have confused him for. My first year teaching, I had a student who had failed the previous year due to missing too many cooking labs to pass and not handing in half the assignments. I had rewritten the curriculum and assignments. I noticed that this student hadn't been handing certain things in and had been skipping my lectures. So I decided to have a chat with them. They thought their marks for that semester were cumulative with their previous year's mark. With a different curriculum, different assignments, and a different professor. So they just had to make up enough marks to get a passing grade. This is a post-grad program. They had a BSc in dietetics. Not a college professor. But I worked in my university's writing center for a while. I had a girl come in with a research paper bibliography that listed "my mom" as a source several times. When I pressed, she told me her mom looked up everything and sent it to her and she just put it in the paper. She told me she had always done it that way. Once had identical twin sisters who turned in identical essays. Both were directly plagiarized from a Google search and received identical zeros. In the final year of high school, I had to intervene during a practical exam when a student attempted to heat a plastic petri dish of water using the blue flame of a Bunsen burner. That student is a PE teacher now. Not me. But a friend who taught in the politics department received a paper about guerrilla warfare in South America. It was so poorly written she couldn't tell if it was a typo, or if they genuinely thought Colombia had been overrun by a Planet of the Apes-style revolution. ETA. This was in the UK and English was the student's first language. Not a professor, but in undergrad I was taking an American history course. Our professor was from Maryland and was probably in her early 40s. This kid asked her if she was one of the Pearl Harbor survivors. He couldn't grasp the fact that she was very much not alive at that time and that Pearl Harbor was not a harbor in Maryland. I once spent an hour explaining to college junior that an even number is divisible by 2. My wife has had multiple students who are fundamentally technologically illiterate. Numerous students have had no idea how to use Word or Excel, including one who used their email as a word processor. The university provides students with Office. There have also been students who struggle with installing programs on computers. What's disconcerting is it's becoming an increasingly common issue as an older millennial. The idea that kids are becoming less technologically proficient is so bizarre. I teach at a community college that doesn't actually require a high school diploma to attend. So I've seen a lot. Mostly it's native English speakers who are virtually illiterate. No abstract or critical thinking skills at all. One wrote a paper about the causes of the Salem witch trials. She sided with the accusers because she'd seen some stuff, clearly not understanding the assignment. Another insisted I approve every word he wrote to make sure he was doing it right, when in Reality, he was wanting me to feed him answers since he didn't do the reading. Yet another wrote in a discussion board about Lord of the Flies. I like how they saved all the flies. That was my favorite part. If you've read the book, you can guess the look on my face. I taught English as a second language at a community college for a decade. My colleagues and I were pretty tough on the academics. But it paid off when our students started regular classes. Often I ran into my former students around campus and asked them how things were going. I lost count of the number of times they expressed disbelief at how badly their native speaking American classmates were at writing sentences, doing math, and giving presentations in front of a group. I worked at my university writing center and saw a lot of really terrible writing. So many poorly written essays. I really don't know how you can graduate from high school without at least being able to perform simple tasks like point to your thesis statement. The whole point of a writing center was to teach students to correct their own work. But there was a direct correlation between how awful a paper was and how likely the student was to throw it at you and say, "I'm going to go have lunch. Will you have it fixed in an hour?" Then try to leave. The tutors all got really good at an authoritative, "Stop right there. Sit down. Now let's talk about how you are going to improve your paper." The most frustrating papers were the science majors. I could never tell if the paper was terrible or I just wasn't following the details of their experiment on chlorinated aliphatic hydrocarbons or whatever. The absolute worst was the English master's degree student who came in several times with absolute gibberish. To be fair, English was his second language, but are you absolutely sure you do not want to consider a career change? My good sir. I used to taught physics. I had a student who had gone to a decent private high school tell me the value of pi was 2.28. I can kind of understand the 0.28, because that's 2 pi, but I don't know where the 2 came from. Till I failed year 12 and still could have gone on to university. Not a professor. But as a college freshman I took advanced English with a student who didn't know how to write a research paper or even possibly read. I don't know. When I realized she didn't know how to research, I gave her my sources and showed her how to navigate them. The next class, when we were supposed to edit each other's rough drafts, I handed her my paper to edit. She gave it back to me after 10 seconds without reading it and said it was good. She then handed me her paper, and it was just a list of random dates. I was a graduate instructor for a scientific writing class, where students were trained in how to consume and report on research in the form of a literature review. One student kept quiet the whole semester and declined help when I reached out to him periodically. Throughout, his term paper came in with the rest. But it was, markedly different. He had written 20 pages on why science was a tool of the devil, complete with quotes from the Bible, and didn't even format the paper the way I had been teaching students all semester. Included in the paper was a snippet of an interview he conducted with his pastor. I gave a failing grade on the paper and recommended to him that he change majors to religious studies or something. I'm still a little lost as to why he was in my class, since some of its prerequisites were empiricism-heavy courses. I'm fine if someone wants to rely on religion over science for their worldview. But if you're going to be in a science class, at least do the assignments according to the rubric. Not a professor. But in undergrad, I had a sociology course where we had to do a group presentation about different types of family. Structures. We divided the work by tasking each group member with creating a slide on a subtopic for our PowerPoint. When it came time to practice, I had everyone send me their slides so I could put it together into one file. I noticed right away that something was off when a group member's slide had gems like "Women's suffrage has destroyed the American family structure," and "Feminism has turned women away from their naturally obedient nature." WTF. I asked to meet with the group member about why the hell his slide was a misogynistic rant, especially for a joint presentation in a group of 4 women at a pretty liberal school. Even if he believed this bullshit, there's no way he thought it wouldn't backfire in a presentation in front of the whole class. Well, I met with him and he sheepishly admitted that he had just Googled American family structure and copy and pasted from the first website he saw. He didn't realize it was offensive. He hadn't read anything on the slide that he had just sent to the group to present. I didn't believe him at first, but I found the website that he used and he quite literally just copied from some random angry incel's personal website. It was a group grade, so I just ended up doing his slides for him. He read what I gave him verbatim and we got an A. I took the grade and was relieved to never work with him again. I had a student who told me, being 100% serious, that he wouldn't be presenting on his assigned day because he didn't do the assignment and he'd go. The next day, the presentation had been given with dates over 2 weeks earlier. When I told him that wasn't how college worked, he claimed discrimination and told me he had accommodations for his disability that allowed him more time. Once he pulled that card, I got the department head involved and she laughed. The guy failed. To clarify, he got double time on times exams to allow for a learning disability. It doesn't excuse him for deciding not to do the work necessary for the class. Professor at a middle-of-nowhere medium-sized state school with a 80-ish% acceptance rate. Had a graduate student who couldn't code for the life of him but was a software engineer at an undisclosed incredibly large aviation company. He couldn't accept that other students who didn't have jobs were better than him and that the people grading him didn't have jobs. Sent death threats because we failed him on an assignment where his code didn't run. He complained to the higher-ups and got a C.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.